We are back from the summer break with a bang, so let's check out what's happened over the last 4-ish weeks. What is up, everyone? Welcome to another episode of F1 Fantasy Pole Position, and welcome back from the summer break. It has been a minute. Thought I was going to get to do some content over the summer break, but I was at the Paris Olympics covering it for TV, and yeah, just got in the way a little bit. So I apologize for my absence, but I am back after almost like a month absent. And yeah, F1 Fantasy Pole Position, tons of episodes, tons of content coming in the second half of the season. This week alone, 4 episodes on the YouTube channel. So definitely like and subscribe to the channel there or on the podcast side if you're listening to the podcast. And Saturday, we are kicking off the second half with a deadline live stream ahead of the Dutch Grand Prix. There's going to be so much to break down this week that I have to get on here live 1 hour before the deadline. So definitely join me there on Saturday afternoon. Going to be talking lineups, maybe a little DFS, I don't know, but yeah, mostly lineups, F1 Fantasy, all breaking down all the data from Friday's practices. We'll see if we get some dry running here. That will be coming out later this week in the race preview. But today, a little bit of a summer break recap. And since I've now got you in here, it will kind of be going over the Belgian Grand Prix as well, since I never got to touch on that. So George Russell owners, this is your warning, your trigger warning. If that is not for you, you may want to avoid the second half of the episode. But like I said, 4 quick episodes this week. Going to do a little bit of a summer break recap here, and then early team selection tomorrow. Green flag, yellow flag, red flag on Wednesday, and then the big race preview episode with final team selection on Thursday, and then the live stream on Saturday. So I'm going to try and keep that format for as many races as possible, especially the live streams. I know those are kind of the most important part of the week. So I got some travel coming up in the second half, but there will be a lot more live streams than there were in the first half of the season. And we will work on that heading into 2025. But deadline live stream, here we go. So summer break recap. Yeah, no movement at Red Bull. That was very surprising. Sergio's going to stay there. Daniel's going to stay at V-Carb. Yuki's going to stay at V-Carb as well. Very kind of, we were all anticipating some movement there in the Red Bull paddock, and they have kind of decided to keep it as is for the second half of the season. Very surprising, especially with McLaren coming on strong, Mercedes coming on strong. Red Bull must not be too worried about the Constructors' Championship. I wouldn't be too worried about Max's Drivers' Championship. I think that is maybe a little too out of reach, especially with kind of Lando's slight downtick in form or lack of wins, I guess. Is that maybe a downtick in form, I guess, for Lando? He's only got 1 this season, but it feels like he should have a lot more. Let me know in the comments below if you think Lando Norris should have more than 1 win this season. But yeah, so no movement at Red Bull. So there's not really going to be any upheaval in F1 fantasy. I was kind of predicting that, touting that for the last couple of races before the summer break, but that makes our lives a little bit easier. So yeah, no worries there. Carlos Sainz went officially to Williams for the 2025 season, making that official, finally getting kind of the biggest domino piece on the board, falls over. So he ends up at Williams. The rumors are, I don't think there's been anything like super duper official yet, or F1.com hasn't like pushed that announcement to my phone saying that Adrian Newey is definitely going to Aston Martin, but it sounds like he is leaning that way. His biggest test, getting Lance Stroll on the podium, I guess, again for Aston Martin. So we'll see how that goes. And now there's only 4 seats officially left on the grid. So Alpine, V-Carb, Mercedes, and Audi still have a seat to fill. Mercedes sounds like it's going to go to Antonelli. Alpine are leaning towards Jack Doohan. I think I saw something that said that was official, but I couldn't really find anything this morning as well. So I'm going to wait for that. Maybe that will come out of the summer break. V-Carb, it sounds like it's down to Daniel Ricciardo and Liam Lawson. And Audi is still up in the air. They got Nico Hulkenberg in 1 seat, but who is going to be in the other seat? There's Zhou Guanyu, there's Valtteri Bottas, there's Kevin Magnussen, there's other drivers coming up through the rankings. So we will see where Audi lands. You'd think that would be getting wrapped up sooner rather than later, or they're going to wait until the later part of the season, just see where everything falls. But that's kind of where it feels like everyone is leaning for 2025. But yeah, Carlos Sainz officially to Williams. That makes it a pretty strong lineup. I tweeted when I saw the news that I think I would put Williams as the fifth best driver lineup for 2025 now, with Alexander Albon and Carlos Sainz in Williams. Let me know in the comments below if you agree with that, or if I am just being preposterous, hyperbolic, kind of reactionary there. But yes, that was the summer break recap. There was lots of other little stuff, but there are tons of other YouTube channels that you can go there and kind of break that down more on the F1 side. But for F1 Fantasy, did want to touch on the Belgian Grand Prix facts and stats real quick. Never got that review out. Really wanted to try and get it out while I was in Paris, but yeah, life got in the way, like I was saying. So Hamilton, Verstappen, Piastri were your top three. Positions gained: Verstappen with 7, Stroll, Tsunoda with 4, Piastri, Ricardo, Magnussen with 3 overtakes, Ocon with 7, Verstappen with 6, and there were 6 drivers with 4. And the fastest pit stop went McLaren, Red Bull, and V-Carb. It was not as overtakey as we thought it was going to be, as it has traditionally been at Spa. And I think that's just a testament to how close these cars are to each other now. Like, Red Bull is not far and away the best car. Didn't really have that DRS advantage that we were used to. So Max was really having a hard time, couldn't really move up the field. Kind of thank goodness he made as much room up on the field as he did in the first few laps there, because it was kind of a dragged out afternoon for Verstappen. So if you went with him, it was a little bit frustrating because you expected more, but it did get pretty lucky there at the end, because it was a pretty awful afternoon if you did not own George Russell or Mercedes for a while there. But then the DQ happened. Trigger warning for all George Russell Mercedes managers. Very sorry to bring that back up, but yes, that kind of bailed a lot of the Verstappen, McLaren kind of heavy managers out of what was looking like, oh my goodness, what have we done? Because a lot of those managers were on Mercedes and McLaren quite heavily before Spa. And then a lot of us, myself included, switched over to kind of a Red Bull model because we thought Verstappen was going to fly through the field. That did not happen. I would say for me, I think I tweeted this out as well after the race. Like, that was good results, bad process by me. And I'm going to do my best to not like try and get that lucky for the rest of the season. Sometimes better to be lucky than good. But yeah, over the long term, those managers who maybe were a little bit more patient, they will have better results down the line. I think our Verstappen managers, Red Bull managers, got pretty lucky there. Optimal teams here at each price budget. So 126, 123, 120, and 117 million. No surprise that after the DQ, the big three, Red Bull, McLaren, and Hamilton, all kind of came out of there. Piastri was the second driver at 126 and 123 million. And then Bottas, Sargent, Albon, Ricardo, Tsunoda, Gasly, kind of all those back markers that didn't DNF kind of did the business there. So 273 points was the max if you're at 126 million, 265 at 123, 255 at 120, and 254 if you're at 117 million. My budget went up from 119 to 119.5. So once again, feeling very lucky about how that all broke out for my squad. Lewis Hamilton was got the second win in the last 3 races there. Highest scoring driver on the grid over the last 6 races at 37.2 points per race. And he is just flying up the budget charts. 4th 1 million rides in the last 7 races. So he got 46 points, qualified 4th, finished 1st, 2 positions gained, and 2 overtakes. One of the greatest drivers of all time, still getting it done in 2024 as he is preparing his final like 10, 11 races in the Mercedes before heading to Ferrari, but he is coming into form. He is a great asset in F1 Fantasy. If you have been on him, you are just flying up the ranks. You're flying up the budget ranks. And I'll touch on this in green flag, yellow flag, red flag later this week. But despite Hamilton being so good right now, I think I would still lean towards getting George Russell in, because if you are short on budget, which I am. There are a lot of managers. I think there's some managers touching like 130 million now in their budget. Um, Getting George Russell in at 20.7 million, he's going to be your best chance to get more budget. If you're not on Hamilton right now, he's only got a couple of million left, like maybe less than a million to even get up to that tier A asset at 25 million, whereas George Russell has 4.3 million. So you can make up that gap and potentially some points as well. Because I know Hamilton's got the points, but I feel like Russell has been right there. He's just had a couple of like the disqualification and then the DNF at Silverstone. Just very unlucky for George Russell. So for me, I will be prioritizing a George Russell transfer this week in F1 Fantasy. Here is my team. It was 198 points. I took a hit, so minus 10, 188 overall. Climbed up about 1,100 places, so I'm just outside the top 6K at this point. Gained zero point 0.5. My transfers were Norris to Verstappen, Russell to Tsunoda, and Mercedes to Red Bull. Plus 79 points when you take all the transfers gained, lost. It was not looking like that before the George Russell disqualification. It was going to be an absolute disaster class in F1 Fantasy there. So like I said, I was pretty... I believed in the transfers and the results worked out, but I think I was just a little bit too reactionary. I believed in that engine penalty a little bit too much. Uh, I think this has gone to prove just how close all the cars are. So I maybe not flipping and flopping so hard, like taking the 10-point hit kind of hurts, especially when there were other managers who had already rolled, been more patient. I was maybe chasing a little bit too much, and I should maybe just believe in my process a little bit more. And that is what I will try to do for the second half of the season. But yeah, Max, Yuki, Logan, Joe Guan Yu, Nico Hulkenberg, Red Bull Racing, and McLaren there. Joe Guan Yu, pretty sure if I remember correctly, he like stalled out on the first lap, thought it was going to change, and then came back in. There's something I got to do here to get off of this Logan and Joe Guan Yu strategy here. So we will see how that goes in the second half of the season as well. And before the Dutch Grand Prix, got to talk about George Russell a little bit. First place George, 38 points. He was going to be 22.2 million and get a 1 million price rise when he finished first, kissing the trophy, and then disqualified George, negative 21 points. 20.7 is his price now in F1 Fantasy and fell 0.5 million. Just really tough luck for George, but this is what I'm talking about. He's got 4.3 million left to get to that 25 million threshold as an A tier asset. He's now the cheapest of the top 4 teams, like asset wise and cost. So including constructors. So definitely a desirable budget gain asset there as well, which I will be looking forward to in the second half of the season as well. So George Russell, really tough luck for his managers. I think Pop Pan Man and F1 Fantasy Hub both had George. I'm not sure who else had him. I really feel for those guys. They were flying high. They were probably, I think, yeah, Rob F1 Fantasy Hub, he was almost into the top 5K with that George Russell kind of boost to his rank. So felt for him there. But unfortunately, those are sometimes the breaks. A lot of we went a long time in F1 without disqualification. And now we've had Hamilton and Leclerc last year at Austin, which affected myself, which hurt. And now we've got George this year. Then we had the DSQ or the kind of Haas thing in Monaco where their wing wasn't a regulation. So it seems like there's a lot more going on in F1 and it's affecting F1 Fantasy as a result. So got to wait for those results to become official, I guess, moving forward. The Killer Bees, this is another section here. So I'm not including Sergio Perez. I'm not really including the Ferraris because while they did do pretty good in Spa compared to what we were thinking they were doing, I'm still not sure how much they will have kind of fixed their car. I'm not sure if it's just like a track specific thing for them as well. So Hamilton, Piastri, and Russell here, like I was saying, so Hamilton 24.1 million. So to get to 25 million, he's only got 0.9 to go. So if you don't have these guys, I think I would still rank them Russell, Piastri, Hamilton for budget gaining. Points per race on the season, Hamilton's at 20.9, Piastri's at 23, George Russell's at 15.4, but he's also had he's had a DNF. He's maybe had two DNFs now this season and a disqualification in there. So his budget or his price would go way up. Last five for points per race, Hamilton 34.2, Piastri 31.2, and Russell's at 13.4, but it's 22.4 if you take out his DNFs and his disqualification. That doesn't include like the points he would have gained from those. It's just taking out the negative points. So he would have been way higher than this over the last five races, and then price rise over the last five as well. Hamilton 2.4, Piastri 1.9, and Russell has actually fallen 0.4. So you've had Russell over the last five races. You have been on a roller coaster, and you've actually come out worse, which that's a 2.8 million gap between him and Hamilton. And I believe he can gain that back over the second half of the season, especially if Hamilton starts to hit that 25 million threshold. Russell can fly up the budget ranks, and you can catch these Lewis Hamilton managers, Oscar Piastri managers, Lando Norris managers in budget. The points will be interesting to see how McLaren, Mercedes, Red Bull kind of come out of the second half. I'm still waiting. I want more evidence about Ferrari before I kind of go all in there. But yeah, Russell, Piastri, Hamilton, I think for points and budget, I would go Piastri. But if you're prioritizing budget, I'd go Russell. And if you're prioritizing points, I would lean Piastri because I believe McLaren has the best car. But overall, Piastri, budget for Russell, and then points only would also be Piastri. Hamilton has had 2 wins, which is nice. But I just don't know if the upside is there anymore with him being so close. He's like one race win away from being an A-tier asset, whereas for Russell, it would take 3 or 4 weeks of that to kind of get to the 25 million. And that would be tons of points. And that would be great for you as a budget enabler, or not an enabler, but points and budget gain, that kind of thing. So that's where I am at with George Russell, Oscar Piastri, and Lewis Hamilton. Price change headlines here. So like I said, Russell is the lowest priced asset among the top 4 teams now, 20.7 million. There were 4 C-tier drivers that went up 0.5 million: Magnussen, Tsunoda, Ricciardo, and Ocon. 6 C-tier drivers fell in price for the second consecutive race here: Gasly, Hulkenberg, Albon, Bottas, Zhou Guanyu, and Sargent. And Verstappen rose 0.2 million for the first time since Canada. In the race reviews, I usually go over all the prices bit by bit, but since we're trying to keep these episodes short-ish this week, I just wanted to kind of give you the headlines there. F1 Fantasy pole position league updates. Leapers won there, 3489 points. Master of Signs, 3364. Ricardo, Downforce F1, Kevin Raceday, and Gunther's Legacy round out the top 5. And then in Belgium, Checkout Clerics, Largewood Racing, Zaddy Hammy, Damien 7XYZZ, and Team LH, Love Charles were all in the top 5 just for the races, but they all used chips like Limitless, Autopilot, all that stuff. And it was not as prosperous, I think, as they were hoping there. But great job by everyone there. I believe Leapers 1 is up to 2nd in the world now. Maybe 3rd. I didn't check the overall standings, but great job by him. So leading the pack by quite a lot in the F1 Fantasy Pole Position League, and is doing a bang-up job in the world overall rankings. Upcoming races here: Netherlands this weekend, then a double header, or this is the first part of a double header for Monza the following week. So plenty of F1 Fantasy content coming out all over YouTube, especially this channel, F1 Fantasy Pole Position. Probably 8 episodes and a live stream coming out over the next 10, 12, 13 days. So definitely like and subscribe to the channel while you're there. And then Azerbaijan a couple of weeks later, where I will be doing my full schedule of content for that as well. I'll be filming it a little bit early because I am actually going to the qualifying day in Azerbaijan, in Baku. So I will be there. Maybe I'll do like a YouTube short TikTok live thing from there, just because it's going to be my first time at a F1 track, F1 race. So very, very excited for that opportunity. And then for this week, like I was talking about, early team selection is coming out tomorrow. Green flag, yellow flag, red flag is coming out on Wednesday. And then the race preview and the team selection are coming out on Thursday. And then the live stream is on Saturday. So hopefully you can join me there. But yes, great to get back in the driver's seat and get some content out once again. Apologies for the kind of just taking a summer break, I guess, on the YouTube side as well. But we are all rested and raring to go for the second half of the season. But this is one of 4 episodes this week. So, like I said, like and subscribe, uh, join the channel, whatever you need to do just to not miss any content on the F1 Fantasy Pole Position YouTube or the podcast side. But I will see you tomorrow. So, thanks again for listening. Thanks again for watching, and I will talk to you next time.